I'm here talking with Hannah Dweck of a Guest House. She's a co-creator. I'm not going to go co-writer, co-director. You're a co-creator. The two of you were really in the trenches doing pretty much everything with this film, I would assume.
Yes.
And so Guest House it's this interesting take on a very, very polarizing topic in our country, especially. The thing that's interesting to me is that I know about documentaries and documentary filmmakers in particular is that they start out with this idea that they're going to do one movie. They've got this idea for a movie, but then they start to film real people. They start to film different things, or they find something that interests them in the screen in filming, and then they go to the editing room and it becomes something completely different. Did that happen with this movie? Did it change directions on you? And if it did, how so?
Yeah, well, I think we went into filming not knowing, exactly who we were going to be following. We were sort of like, all right, the first couple of days, we're just going to sort of be at this house. We're going to see like who gravitates towards being filmed, who feels comfortable, just sort of feeling everything out. And so the three women who we ended up filming kind of like almost self-selected, that they were just responding very well to being on camera and, gravitated towards us. So in that way, like we didn't know if this was going to be more about the house or if it was going to be more about like 5 women or 3 or even 1 maybe. So we definitely just sort of let that natural course happen. It was pretty clear, I think, going into the edit that we were always going to follow these 3 women, just because we very clearly, had like certain days where we were filming one of the 3, but exactly what that was going to look like, or if one of them just sort of had more of an arc that we could follow versus another, that was sort of unclear. But it's, in the end, it really seemed like all 3 of them, we'd followed their stories pretty completely. And we felt like having various perspectives on this crisis was important, because one of the things that we're doing is showing this movie to women in similar circumstances, and they're watching themselves be represented on screen for the first time. And it's so wonderful that they have like not just one person to watch, but these 3, and they like see themselves in bits of each woman. And that's really cool.
How long did you guys film for? How long were you there?
So we filmed like almost like every day for 6 months. So wow. that was really intense. I mean, we wouldn't.
That's a lot of footage to go through.
Yeah, but like we would be there because we wanted to be present and show up every day also for them. That was really important for trust both ways. But we do also catch them like at the end of the movie when you're watching them. It is about the 9-month mark in their lives. So like the first 6 months we always knew were crucial, and we wanted to focus on that because that's very like make or break. And then we felt like in order to really give more perspective, we wanted to sort of catch up with them at the end, when we were sort of at the end of the edit as well. So the last couple of moments in the movie are actually 9 months out.
The interesting thing about following people and getting their story and getting them is that sometimes you gravitate to a person as a person and you see them as a person. And I'm kind of curious, what did they give you that you didn't have going into this process?
I mean, I learned so much, I think, about like resilience and I think it's also just like how alike we all are. Yael and I went into this sort of not really knowing what we were going to find. And, as we just were meeting these women, we realized kind of what Yael and I would talk about with each other on a day-to-day basis was just basically the same as what they're talking about with each other on a day-to-day basis. So really like breaking down sort of the bias of someone who is an addict, and that we all are really just trying to like survive in life to like different degrees than others, but like we really just learned, we're so like humbled every day, also by like the dedicated staff who work at this house. You know, the executive director, Carrie Galloway, is like Wonder Woman. You know, I mean, it's so incredible. So I feel like we just learned like so much empathy and like really building trust with people who we met on day one to like film their intimate lives. And that was a really cool experience.
What do you love or covet about being an indie filmmaker? What is it that you really enjoy about it?
I really enjoy actually like kind of how small the community is. Like to be a filmmaker is like, sounds like a very intimidating job and like feels like that a lot, where it's like a lot of competition, a lot of like art, you know. And I think one of the things that's been really cool is like finding this kind of small community of filmmakers, and especially in like the indie world, when a lot of times you're kind of like in the trenches on whatever it is you're making, and you are the director and the producer and the camera person, or you know, you're like handling three things at one time. Like sort of talking to people about like funny experiences or things that happen. I mean, it's kind of like a job like no other in that way, that you know, I mean, like I've learned such random things by like randomly being a location manager and having to deal with animals and, you know, things like that on location. So I think that's very fun.
And within the indie filmmaking community, there's the indie documentary filmmaking community, which is an even smaller niche. And
yeah.
I find that, especially because it is such harsh subject matter most of the time that somebody's doing a documentary about, or something that they're bringing to light, that everybody who's within this community has a thorough understanding of what you went through to make this thing happen, and that's why you guys gravitate to each other. So
yeah.
Is that kind of how you feel?
I do feel that way. It's like you all kind of like have this shared understanding of like what it means to really like dig deep, you know, for a very long period of time. And also like having to go home and somehow like compartmentalize what you filmed that day, like is kind of impossible sometimes. And like, you know, trying to also have your life while you are literally immersing yourself in someone else's, like that's the job. That is really cool. And also like generally, I think people who make like indie films or who gravitate towards this kind of work are like very strong personalities in all different ways. So you like learn cool things about what people like to do, and everyone is like kind of quirky, and it's pretty fun.
I always like to ask this of somebody who makes a film about something that is really something that is poignant in our society, and this is certainly one of those subject matters. Opiate addiction is huge right now. And I know that you probably had a preconceived notion or a thought of how you stood on the subject matter when you walked into this thing. Did that evolve or change in any way, having gone through what you've gone through in this experience?
Yeah, that's interesting. So I guess I always kind of felt like, you know, there was this obvious sort of disparity between people who like have money and are addicted to drugs and people who don't, you know, and generally there's this divide of like, if you can pay for rehab, that's what happens. And if you can't, you go to jail. And I guess while I knew that, I like didn't really sort of feel the gravity of that, you know, and then I like met all of these really incredible women who had this opportunity to go to this nonprofit, like essentially rehab center, you know, like getting the incredible amounts of support that you would get at like a paid center, like kind of like no matter who you are, that this is such a like leveling kind of crisis.
Sounds like this was a profound experience for you.
It was pretty profound. As I'm talking about it, I like forget now because we have like some distance from the film.
Yeah, sure.
Meeting these three women and like being in this house was like a pretty profound experience that I don't think like Yael and I both really knew what we were walking into, which was like is kind of good in retrospect that maybe we didn't know, but like amazing that we were able to go through this whole process. And you know, the movie that has come out of it, like we're really proud of, the women are really proud of, and that feels exciting.
Are the women available to join you on the road when you guys go to film festivals and premieres and such?
They haven't been able to yet. They are working, which is really awesome.
Great
programs. But we are hoping to do some local screenings. So we're from Washington, D.C., and we filmed in Virginia. So we're hoping in this like DC, Maryland, Virginia area to have some screenings around our impact campaign, and that they'll be able to join us for those, since they don't have to like travel or miss work or anything like that.
Are they excited to be movie stars?
Yes, I think they are. But we haven't really had the experience yet of all being in a room and like sort of basking in this thing that we all created together. So I'm really excited for that.